Let's talk about what I call the silent disability, mental health. We're going to be talking about a few different types of conditions. I'm going to kind of lump them in together. But if I know that I've had a couple of requests to do specific videos on specific disabilities relating to particular mental health, whether it be depression, anxiety, bipolar. I'm going to do those over the course of the next couple of weeks, so be patient. But I wanted to kind of kick off my discussion talking about what I call the silent disability. The reason why I call it silent is because on most people that I run across who have a mental health impairment sometimes express concern to me because when they go before a judge, this is not a condition that you can readily see. Meaning the person's not walking in there with a walker or have a back brace on or a cast. They're not sitting there shifting in their seats and everything like that. As a matter of fact, if they're having a good day, you may not have any indication whatsoever that there's something wrong. Meaning silent in the sense that it's not something you can readily see. This is not somebody who has obesity or has to take insulin shots or anything like that. On its face, it's sometimes difficult to look at someone and tell if they have a mental health impairment. So I always tell people to keep a couple of things in mind. Social Security typically does not blindly just look at you and say, you look like you're okay. Mental health impairments are a unique beast. They're unique because they manifest themselves in ways a little bit different than other physical conditions tend to manifest themselves. When you're looking at a mental health condition, you're looking at a variety of different things. You're looking at how the person functions amongst other people. You're looking at how the person functions under stress. You're looking at how the person functions when they're on their medications, whether they hear voices, whether they have bouts of severe anger or severe sadness. A person with a mental health condition, like I said, walking down the street, you may not readily recognize that they're having problems. So what happens is when Social Security is looking at your condition, they're looking at whether or not there are a lot of other underlying things that is causing the individual to have problems. So it's important for you to remember that if you're applying for disability benefits, and you're basing it primarily on your mental health condition, it's important to have a couple of things. One, you've got to do, and this is where it gets a little tough, try to do the best you can to articulate how your condition impacts you. And that's the other thing that's sometimes tough, because there are certain mental health conditions in itself, even doing what I just suggested is a difficult thing to do. It's hard to put into words how your condition limits you. I've had the opportunity to represent a few individuals, and sometimes when you ask somebody like with a mental health condition, describe your condition as limiting you. Like I said, it's not like saying, oh, my back hurts and it feels like somebody's stabbing me in my back, or I have a hard time breathing because when I'm around certain things, or maybe my feet hurt, something like that. You're asking someone to tell you what problems you're having up here. And it's just being blunt. Sometimes that's not an easy thing to communicate. So what you kind of have to do sometimes is, and this is the other thing that's tough with mental health, is if you have a mental health impairment, you've been doing things a particular way to accommodate your condition for so long that what you do for yourself may not seem like anything out of the norm. But for somebody who may not have those same problems, it does. Like, for instance, if I ask you, do you go shopping? And your first response is, yeah, I go shopping. Then you're like, oh, well, then what's wrong with you? But then if I delve a little bit closer and say, well, when you go shopping, what time do I go? Oh, well, I tend to go shopping at Walmart. And I'm like, okay, again, somebody's going to say, Walmart, good God, big store. But let's say somebody takes it a step further and say, well, when do you go to Walmart? Oh, I go to Walmart like 2 in the morning because there's nobody there, because that's the only time I can function because there's no one there. See how that scenario is a lot different from Walmart? When most people think of Walmart, we think of, potty time whenever we're going there. We don't think about the fact that it's a 24-hour facility, and that there are times when people may go there when there's nobody there. And for those of you who haven't gone to Walmart 2 in the morning, and I raise my hand because I've gone a couple of times whenever I've come in late from a road trip or something like that, there is nobody in Walmart. For those who you can't believe that there's a possibility that there's nobody in Walmart at a particular time, actually around dark 30, 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah, nobody's in the store. So it's reasonable under those scenarios. Also, you have to stop and think about your medications you're taking. You also have to think about how are you interacting with people. How do you get along when you're dealing with individuals? How about family members, friends? Do you get stressed out easy? And a lot of these questions are sometimes not very easy to answer when you're suffering from these conditions themselves. So as I start off this, and I'm going to be dealing with other specific impairments along the way, I'll be talking about depression specifically, anxiety, bipolar, things like that. Collectively, I want you to remember that when you're applying for disability benefits based on your mental health impairment, I know sometimes it gets frustrating because you feel like you're suffering in silence because you're wondering or you're worried that because your conditions aren't readily seen, that maybe they're not going to perceive you to be disabled. Trust me, they're going to look at a whole lot of other things. You just make sure that you take the time to sit down, and maybe not necessarily with yourself, because sometimes we take for granted the things that we do on a regular basis. Why don't you sit down with someone, okay? Someone who knows you, and just kind of discuss it and say, okay, how am I acting differently than maybe the average person does? This way you have a better way of communicating, a good snapshot of what your mental health impairments are.